active duty Marine, multiple deployments to Afghanistan, father, husband, son, multiple achievement and commendation medals. These are just some of the things that our next guest for the Jarhead Podcast, Staff Sergeant Hemming. Let's stand up, buckle up, and shuffle to the door and get it going with the Jarhead Podcast.
You will treat all Marines with the highest level of respect, for we have earned our place as Marines and will accept nothing less than that from you.
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine. My rifle is my best friend. It is my life. I must master it as I must master my life. Without me, my rifle is useless. Without my rifle, I am useless.
What is going on, all my crayon eaters out there? Welcome to the Jarhead Podcast. We are going to have a fun time today with Matthew Hemming, Staff Sergeant Matthew Hemming, and we're going to go through his story and all of that. But before we get going, I do want to mention a couple things. If you're out there and you're a veteran, anyone really, but especially if you're a veteran and you're having some dark times, you're in that hole and you need someone to talk to, first of all, you feel free to reach out to me anytime you want to, 24/7, call, text, email, direct message. I cannot give you medical advice, but I sure as hell can maybe be a pretty decent shoulder and an ear to listen and talk you through some stuff. If you're looking for someone that can actually point you in the direction of medical advice and all that, don't worry about what you're going to think, your ego. Remember two things. One, you're not alone. And two, the world is a much better place with you in it. So if you're out there and you need help, please contact the Veteran Crisis Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Once again, 1-800-273-8255. It is scrolling if you're watching the video down below. And if you're looking at all about learning to find out what it takes to earn the title United States Marine, visit the website, www.marines.com. Or by the end of the day, you can probably contact Staff Sergeant Hemming if you're in his area, and he could give you some good ideas of what's going on. That being said, let's welcome in our guest, Staff Sergeant Matthew Hemming. What's going on, Staff Sergeant? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Oh man, just it's cold down here. I know you're up in Ohio, so it's really cold up there. But for Arkansas, it's really cold. We got ice on the ground. But you guys are probably laughing at us, going, "It's just a little bit of snow and ice." We go through that every day. But yeah, it's cold. We're iced in right now, so it works out okay.
Yeah, I feel that. It's definitely cold up here as well too. But that's part of the experience being up here in Ohio.
Right. So one of the reasons why I reached out to you and wanted to bring you on is you kind of bring a different perspective than most of the people that are going to be on this podcast. Most everyone that's on the podcast or is going to be on the podcast are already out and they're telling the story of what happened. You're still active. And more importantly, you are the front line of the next generation of Marines. You are a recruiter. And we want to kind of get some people some insight on what it is to be a recruiter. So, before we start into the fun questions, if you want to kind of give some people your background and maybe go into what it takes and what it is like being a recruiter in today's, especially with COVID and all that, what it's like being a recruiter right now.
Yeah, so right now, over this past year, I've been out here. It's been a different experience for most. We really have been rewriting the playbook in terms of recruiting and finding new ways of getting out there. Before, most of what we did was going into the high schools, being out there in the community, being those influencers out in person, and definitely making that difference in everyone's lives. And now that COVID's here, we've lost opportunities to be in the schools. We lost opportunities to be at events, and just being out in the community in general. Now it's a whole different experience, as I'm sure we're all learning over this past year, that most people are just out there to get what they need and they go home. They're not out there to mingle and talk with people and have that face-to-face interaction as much. So a lot of what we're doing now is really trying to get out there more on social media and not just post just the recruiting message from a recruiter's perspective. It's mostly just, hey, this is who I am. My name's Matthew Hemming. I'm a normal guy just like you. And, here's my family. I post a lot of that stuff on there, what I like to do, what I'm into. Normally, if I see something that I like, I tag people in it, put it on my story and whatnot as well, too. But a little bit of, that. I also make sure to get the point across that I'm here to recruit. And, if you are looking for information in terms of, what the Marine Corps is about, that's what my page is about as well, too. You just go on there and, I have plenty of posts on my Instagram that explain what the Marine Corps can do for you and will do for you.
So I know that we were talking kind of before we went live and started recording, and you were talking about the social media aspect and all that. But I want people to understand that the life of a recruiter is not the easiest thing in the world, especially now. But you guys work extremely long hours and all that. Can you kind of give an idea, without going too far in depth of your personal life, but about how many days a week are you working longer hours than what your normal job would be?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, going into it, a normal job in the Marine Corps is about, for most people, it's about 8 to 5. You might get up a little earlier and go for a run or whatever, and PT in the Marine Corps. But here in recruiting duty, our day typically starts at, 7 or 8 in the morning, and we go until the job's done. And sometimes it requires us to go to 10 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. And we're working pretty much every day of the week. We're either processing, shipping, or holding appointments for people that are interested in joining the Marine Corps. So for the most part, I like to tell people to work anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week. That's a whole lot of work when you think about it. But other than that, though, once you get in the groove of things, it's really something that makes time fly by. At first, it's a little difficult to get adjusted to, because you go from maybe 60 hours a week to that workload. And but as long as you take care of yourself and you make time for your family and whatnot as well too, it pays off in the long run.
Absolutely, and I know that it's got to be. I know that recruiters in general, not just in the Marine Corps, but I think, military wide, if something goes wrong with someone in their career, the first thing they do is, my recruiter did this and my recruiter said that. So you've got a lot of pressure on there, but you are basically the representative of the Marine Corps in your area to the civilians, that not just the people that we're looking to get to join, but their families, their friends. Because I'm assuming that you might be talking to John Smith about joining the Marine Corps. He may not be interested, but his buddy hears a conversation. So you have to kind of have that public face, and you are representing the Marine Corps as a whole to your community. And there's a lot of pressure in that, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes, for sure. Everything we do in our local community, we're only, a couple of Marines around this area, and there's no major Marine Corps base around here. So, a lot of people around here are very patriotic for the most part in Central Ohio, but, there's definitely that aspect to those things of pressure, making sure you're always doing the right thing. And, recruiting's not for everyone either. If you're not capable of handling yourself on the independent duty, I don't suggest doing recruiting duty unless if you think you can do that. And the other thing too is this, you learn how to publicly speak with people as well. And, you get used to always being that face. And to me, I really like that inspiration aspect of it. I like to inspire the young men and women. I'm walking around in uniform. They see me. They might not know I'm in the Marines until I tell them, because I do get accused that I'm in the Army a lot. And, I like the education aspect of things. It's nice to be able to show people what a Marine looks like, and, hopefully make a difference.
Well, I think that the one thing that we have over the other branches is you're wearing them right now. We've got the blues. And the blues stand out. I mean, I know that most people, even from other branches, have even said, man, you guys have the greatest dress uniform in the world. And so it does help. The blues you stand out in a crowd for sure. That's for sure. And they are sharp looking and all that. But yeah, having that persona, because, I think the biggest thing that most kids, I remember when I was thinking about joining, is you hear all these things about the Marine Corps, about the fiercest fighting force in the world, and a lot of, I mean, all of that stuff is true. But like you said, there is a human element to every Marine, and they want you at that peak performance when you're ready to go down range. But most of our time is training and downtime, and you've got to be able to figure out how to manage a family and all that. So it is nice, I think, for people to see that we are normal people. We have families, we have kids and wives, and we coach softball and soccer and basketball and all that other stuff that goes into being a real human being, that, you're not just this robot all the time. So I think that is very important for the recruiters to maybe help people understand that we're normal people as well. I think you brought that up earlier as well.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's jump into the fun stuff. We've got a list of questions that from our viewers and all of that they've kind of said over the time what they'd like to hear background and all that. So for me, the first question that I want to ask you is this: what motivated you to join the Marine Corps? Now that you're motivating other people, but what motivated you? What was your story as to why you joined the Marine Corps?
For me, what motivated me was I went straight into college out of high school, mainly because my mother was concerned about, the war going on back in 2007 when I graduated high school. Iraq, Afghanistan was still very big thing. But I did a whole year in college, and I didn't really like it. It wasn't for me type of deal. And I realized I'm not about that life. And I think a big part of me always wanted to be a United States Marine, or always wanted to be in the military of some aspect of things. So, going forward, what motivated me was circumstances, I would say, for the most part. I was working full time, going to school full time, and I just didn't like that life, and I wanted to make that change. And what I mean by the change, I mainly mean I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to learn how to live life. But not only that, I came from a very small town, so I wanted to see what life was all about. And, when it comes down to choosing the Marines over any of the other branches, it was really, I saw a poster going down the road one day. I was having a bad day, and it happened to be a Marine on that poster. And I was like, you know what, today's the day. And, I walked in the office, and a couple of weeks later, I was at San Diego, boot camp. And
on the yellow footprints, man. On the yellow footprints. So that kind of goes into the next question. Before we're going to talk a little bit about boot camp, but for a lot of people, it was the yellow footprints, or it was the initial shock and awe of going into receiving. Do you remember that oh crap moment? Like it became real to you, like I'm here. Was it getting on the plane, or when was that moment? Because everyone has one, but when was that moment for you of like, oh, there's no going back. I'm here now.
Yeah, so that moment for me was, I would say, it used to be called Black Friday, when you pick up with your platoon, with your drill instructors that you're going to have for the next 13 weeks. And the oh crap moment was when I was getting yelled at by my kill hat, they called it back then, for him slipping on the sunblock that I had on the floor after we dumped all of our bags out. He slipped, and as he's falling down, he's knife handing me and yelling at me for being in the wrong. And that's the first time I ever got yelled at for someone else falling down. So that was my oh man, here I am moment. And after that, the rest is history for the most part.
Yeah, it's like everyone's got that moment. And I think for me, I remember standing on the yellow footprints, and then you go into receiving, and you go to those little cubicles, and you dump all your stuff out, and you're sitting. I remember very distinctly, and it's probably like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning when all this is going on. But I remember standing there and just having people just yelling all the time, and I didn't know who to listen to. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't really sure, and I think that's probably planned. They wanted to kind of throw you into a little confusion. But I'm thinking, do I listen to this guy, this guy, this guy? And then I just had that moment as like, it doesn't matter. I think I'm going to be wrong no matter who I choose. Yeah. So, and that's just, it's planned that way. But for me, that was the first moment, like, I can't just walk out the door at this point. I'm here. Let's get through this. So that was an interesting thing for me.
I feel you. I remember.
Yeah. So speaking of boot camp, once you've made that realization it's happened, you get the next 13 weeks to basically transform you from a nasty civilian into a Marine. And people don't realize what they literally break you down and build you up, and how they do it in just 13 weeks is pretty amazing. But is there one story that you can tell or whatever, but is there one story that kind of sums boot camp up for you, like something you remember, you'll always remember, like this is what boot camp is to me?
Yeah, so the biggest story from boot camp that I have is probably, to be honest with you, it was during the Crucible. I was lucky enough to be with my senior drill instructor in our little group during the Crucible time frame, which is that 3-day event with little sleep, little food. And he was all about the hard life. Like, this, eat all of our MREs right away, and we're not going to get any sleep. We're going to be the best group out here. And, for me, that was the hardest time, because by that very last day when we're hiking up there in Camp Pendleton, going up that big mountain, I was exhausted. And the biggest story I remember from that was that's when I was truly challenged and tested to earn that title. But not only that, I never was the most in shape person in boot camp, but I was, that moment going up that mountain, I remember like a lot of people that I thought were, better off than me physically, they were falling backwards, and I was the one helping motivate them get up and stand up and just make it to the top of this mountain. And when we finally got up there, just getting that orange that we got, that fruit that they gave every recruit up there to help us, hike the rest of the way back down. That was that best moment of my life during boot camp for the most part, was just that simple orange. And it's those little things in the Marine Corps or in the military in general where you just cherish just a simple orange, which makes it so special.
So I didn't have the Crucible. When I was in, we didn't have the Crucible back then. So, we had second phase up at Camp Pendleton, and we basically did the same thing. We were out in the field for about 10, 11 straight days, doing night nav, doing all the stuff, probably and all the other stuff. It just wasn't called the Crucible. The difference is what you guys have, which I wish we did. Now we humped up the Reaper, and I think overall we did over 50 miles of humping, whatever. But the last part was humping up and down the Reaper. We called it a different name. But I understand that you guys at the end of the Crucible, you guys have a ceremony where you receive your EGAs. And we didn't get that. We received them on the Sunday prior to graduation. We had family day, and we had to give them back that night. And then we got them the final time. We had a little in the squad bay, a little ceremony the Thursday night prior to the Friday graduation, where we actually received them for good. But I would imagine with all the stuff that goes along with the Crucible, and then at the end of it, like you said, not just receiving the orange, but at the end of it, you're receiving your Eagle Globe and Anchor, which basically means you're a Marine at this point. You've earned that title. I wish we had something like that. That would have been really, really cool. So can you kind of tell someone right now that's out there what the emotions are and what the feeling is going through that Crucible and going through that hell of 3 months, and then all of a sudden your senior drill instructor, your drill instructor, your company commander, whoever it is, puts that EGA in your hand and calls you a Marine for the first time. I imagine that's pretty emotional, is it not?
Oh, yes, exactly. And that's something we always talk about as recruiters as well too, is that moment is probably still the most powerful moment in my life for the most part, short of my kids being born and welcoming them into the world. But at that moment in my life, hiking back down off that mountain after eating that orange, and we stand in formation for that ceremony, for our Eagle Globe and Anchor ceremony, and your drill instructor placing that in your hand. It's everything you've gone through. It just all comes down to that moment. And I will tell you, that's the first time I probably cried, for something I've earned in my whole life at that moment. And, you're tired, you're trying to keep your, standing up for a while as doing formation, your legs are smoked. And it's tough, but it's definitely, when that Eagle Globe and Anchor is presented to you and your drill instructor calls you a Marine for the first time, it's something I'm always going to remember. And that's something I can't tell everyone enough is that moment is definitely, you will never forget it going forward in your life.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting gooses because I guess we didn't have that specific moment, but I remember this is back in 1994 though, man. I remember Thursday night. So Thursday we got all of our uniforms. Everything was making sure everything's good to go for the next day's graduation. We ended up watching a movie that night, and before that, our senior was in there, and he, like I said, he kind of got us all together, and he just kind of went individually, and I'll never forget that because you go through. Let's just be real. Marine Corps boot camp is different than anything else you're ever going to go through. It is hard. It is extremely difficult. It is extremely stressful, but they make it that way. They want you to earn that title. They're not going to give it to you. They want you to know when you graduate, you're at that tip of the spear of people in this world. So I think that that's one of the coolest things is we talk about earning the title. And if you go to Marine Corps boot camp, you're going to earn that title. Let's make no mistake about it. But it is probably the most rewarding thing that you're ever going to go through because mom and dad, brother and sister, best friends, no one is there to get you through it. It's you. Do you have the physical and the mental fortitude to get through hell for 13 weeks? Because on the other side of it is the Marine Corps. And I think that that's an awesome thing. So you go from boot camp and you went to, you went to MCT, which is Marine Combat Training up in Pendleton after that. And then you went to your schooling. Can you kind of tell people what your primary MOS was?
Yeah, so I'm in communications. I do IT network engineering. My job's kind of changed a little bit in the Marine Corps as the years have flown by, but it's still basically dealing with computers. I went to 29 Palms Marine Corps Communications Electronics School there. And I got the MOS at the time. It was called Data Systems Operator. And then throughout my years so far, it's transformed into what it is now, 0639 IT Network Engineer. And long story short, it's really a good job to get into in terms of being able to take it out of the Marine Corps and apply somewhere in the civilian world. Right now, I tell people this a lot when I'm recruiting them is I get out of the Marine Corps right now and probably get a job that's making $100K a year with certifications I've earned since I've been in. So it's definitely a rewarding job for sure, but it's ever changing for the most part. And that's what I like about it.
Yeah. So we spent some time up at the stumps, obviously doing some training stuff, and it's an interesting place to say the least.
Oh, yes.
So the interesting thing about the Marine Corps is a lot of people, fascinating you bring up after the Marine Corps and jobs and all that. I think a lot of people out there, they think they hear all these stories and they think that Marines are just not very smart and they call us jarheads, but they take that jarhead as a different way. But they think that we're not very smart and we're just these human hunting machines and all that. But what they don't realize is overall, at least it was back when I was in, maybe you can give us some insight now, but at one point when I was in, the Marine Corps had, I want to say, the highest average ASVAB score of all the branches. And so it's kind of interesting where people just assume that the Marines are this, but setting and finding a job, you don't always have to go and be a pipe hitter or a door kicker. There's a lot of different things that happen in the Marine Corps that can set you up in civilian life because you're going to get trained by the best. And you can go to tech school out in the civilian world. You go to an MOS school and you're going to be trained by the best. When you get done with your service, like you said, you're going to be set up. You have the possibility of being set up with a really, really good job. So when you talk to recruits and you talk to people that are interested in the Marine Corps, do most people ask you more about the jobs, or are they like, hey, am I going to go overseas or deployed? When am I going to get a gun? Like, what's the first couple questions that most people are going to ask you when you speak to them as a recruiter?
Yeah, so from that aspect of thinking, for the most part, there's always the people that want to join the Marine Corps to be those door kickers, so they don't really care about hearing about anything else for the most part. But there are the ones that we try to explain to that are definitely not understanding of what the Marine Corps is all about. Like you were saying, a lot of people have that perception. When we tell them we have almost about over 200 different jobs, technical skill jobs, and we sit down and explain to them how all the services are pretty relatable in that aspect of things. It's definitely their first questions are like, well, what kind of jobs do we got? Am I going to be certified? Can I use that stuff in the civilian world? And then we break it down into like, yes, you will be certified starting out in your MOS school and then going further. You stay in the Marine Corps past 4 years. You're going to the advanced MOS schools. You're getting certified in a higher capacity. You're taking on that supervisor manager role more and more. And those are the things we try to sell to people and make them understand that, it's not just about what service branch you're joining. It's that job experience. It's the Marine Corps as well, too. We are the best of the best when it comes down to it because America demands the Marines be the most ready. So what are we always doing? We're always training. We're always practicing our skill set. And what does that do for you? It allows you to go into the civilian world and explain that and be the one that's, probably more favorable in the job markets when the employer is trying to hire someone.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something, and I hire people at my work and all that. And I tell the story all the time. If I've got a position opening and I have two candidates, one's a 22, 23-year-old college graduate. Awesome. Good for you. And the other one is a 22, 23-year-old veteran that did his 4 or 5 years, got out. I'm probably going with the veteran, not because I'm a veteran myself. That does play a role, but more importantly, they have life skills. So the person that has a college degree, yeah, that's great. But the person that has been in the military has the sense of duty. They have the sense of time management. They can work under stress. They have built-in leadership skills. All of these things that the same person, the same age, this person is going to have half of what the veteran has as far as comes to technical skills, leadership ability. Once again, time management, responsibility, all of these things play into a role when you're being hired. Having that on the background of being in the military for 4 or 5 years or whatever it is going to look really, really good to a lot of people because they don't have to worry about you. And even if you don't have the exact training that they need for that job, they can teach you that stuff because they know that you can be taught.
Yep.
So if you're out there and you're worried about, well, I don't know if I want to do this because everyone says a college degree, that's not necessarily the case. So just be mindful of that. So the next question I want to bring up is, where have you been fortunate enough? We'll say fortunate, but where all have you been fortunate enough to go while in the Marine Corps, whether it was schooling or downrange or whatever, but where all have you spent time at while you're in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, so I like to talk about that too. So I've been over 10 different countries since I've been in a bunch of different states for training and whatnot. But the big ones that stand out, I've been stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. After that, I went to Marine Corps Air Station New River in North Carolina as well. And then I went on a joint duty assignment for 3 years in Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, and had a good time down there as well, too. And it was definitely one of those experiences where I learned how to be adaptable and overcome a lot of different things. I was working the Army, Navy, and Air Force during that time. And then 29 Palms was my last duty station before I came here. And in terms of deployments and seeing different things and fun experiences, I talk about different countries I've been in. I've been in Germany, Romania, Kyrgyzstan, Australia, and a couple other European countries. Can't remember where we stopped at, to be honest with you. But in terms of deployment-wise, I was part of Operation Mostruck with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines in Afghanistan, Marja, Afghanistan, to be exact. And I got to be a field radio operator, which isn't my primary MOS at all. Right. But I got to do that while I was with them. And I was attached to a line company, Kilo company out there on my first deployment, and got to learn the grunt style of things and really learned to respect their MOS. And, some of my closest friends came from that deployment, to be honest. I still keep up with all of them to this day. And then I was fortunate enough to go back again in 2011 to Marja, Afghanistan. This time we weren't really doing an invasion force type of deal. It was more of a holding operation where we're just keeping security and helping the Afghan National Police and Army out and make sure they can, fully take over. And then after that, for the most part, I haven't been deployed again for a long time. I've been to different training areas for the most part. But going forward, it's just going throughout my career now. I've been doing mostly the garrison life now. And, I do miss going out there and doing some of the funner things when I was younger.
Yeah, that's one of the things where, I get people all the time asking where I've been, kind of some of the training and the stuff that we did. And you look back and you look at all the stuff that we did, especially in training, you're like, man, we did some really cool stuff. And what people don't realize is 99% of the world is not going to be able to experience that stuff. And being a Marine is, you're going to have your primary MOS, but as you found out, first and foremost, every Marine is a rifleman. So more importantly than your MOS is you're a Marine first. So there's a lot of things you're going to get to do, whether it's fast roping out of the helicopters or, whatever you're going to do. One of the coolest things I ever did was spy rigging. I'm terrified of heights. I overcame that real quickly. I also had a sergeant that said that if you don't, then things will get bad. But I was a 19-year-old PFC and doing spy rigging for the first time was crazy. But I look back at that, I was like, I would have never been able to do that as a civilian. There's going to be a lot of stuff that you're going to be able to do as a Marine. And that's a really cool thing about it. But yeah, it's really cool that you've got to see a lot of places. There are a lot of people that are a lot like you that are from a smaller town. I'm from Dallas, so I grew up in a huge city, but a small town, they don't know what's outside that bubble. And if you're going to go see the world, you might as well get paid for it. That's the greatest thing about it. Might as well get paid for it. When it comes down to your career so far, you've been in almost 12 years, I guess, almost. And 12 years. So of all of the ranks that you've had, what's the rank that you're most proud of receiving?
Yeah, so the rank I'm most proud of receiving is probably the rank I currently am right now, is Staff Sergeant. But it's by far my least favorite rank. I've enjoyed being up here. I'm planning on getting promoted in Gunnery Sergeant this year. So I'm working really hard at getting that done. But my favorite rank, and this is most people that served in the Marine Corps, they really love being a sergeant, and I loved being a sergeant in the Marines. The sergeant in the Marine Corps is the backbone. Put it simply, we get stuff done as a sergeant. And I'm not saying other ranks can't get things done, but the sergeant is the one where he's given the most responsibilities at a younger age in the Marine Corps. You might be a senior sergeant and, you have more experience, but when you're a young sergeant, you're really learning and you're really adapting and overcoming and helping and guiding and mentoring your Marines beneath you as well too. So, and what people don't really fully understand all the time either, for me, what I loved the most about it was we were really the buffer zone between the senior staff non-commissioned officers and the junior Marines in the Marine Corps. We get the mission, we get the assignment, and, we find our way to make sure it gets done. And long as the mission's completed and we're keeping that a priority and taking care of everyone above and below us, that's really where you get the most gratification out of it.
Yeah, I wasn't in that long, but when I became a corporal, it was kind of cool because you're an NCO, and I agree, the NCOs, especially the sergeants, are the absolute backbone of any Marine Corps unit and the Marine Corps in general. I remember being a corporal and giving my own team, my own fire team, and that was something I was like, oh crap, like, okay, I'm responsible for 3 other dudes at this point, and that was kind of interesting to take that leadership role. But once again, they're not going to put you in that position if they don't think that you can handle it. And you're talking about leadership skills. You're talking about you have to be able to empathize with what's going on, because every Marine has their own story, their own background. So you have to be able to decipher what is real, what's crap, what's an excuse, and take that and build them into what you need them to be. So yeah. So of all your time in the Marine Corps, now there are probably some stuff that you may not be able to talk about or want to talk about, but in your time in the Marine Corps, is there a story that kind of defines your time in there that says this could only happen in the military? This couldn't happen in the civilian world.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of stories that I can't tell you, but there's one in particular I'm willing to share, and only a few people know about this. I don't even think I told my wife about this story because it's embarrassing. But one time when I was serving with 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, we were in 29 Palms for our pre-deployment training there. And I was with the communications platoon at the time, and my little group of NCOs and Lance Corporals and privates and whatnot, we got tasked with setting up what's called a retransmission site, which is designed to help radio comm work at a further range so the infantry and ground forces can do their job, and the commander can direct it. So we got tasked with setting up that site on top of a mountain in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm sure you remember, 29 Palms, those mountains are way out there in the distance. And,
yes, they are.
You know, we were a group of NCOs and young Marines that just had to figure it out. We didn't have any super clear guidance on how to get it done. And we just grabbed our equipment and we headed out there. We knew where we had to go. We knew how to get it set up. And we took a Humvee there. It was about a hour trip into the desert. And, you know, instead of lugging all the gear up to the top of the mountain, we decided to see how far we can get the Humvee up the mountain. And, you know, in hindsight now, we kind of wish we didn't do that. But on our trip up the mountain, we got the Humvee stuck in a really big crater that was in the mountain. Like a Humvee, like tilted like this, and we couldn't get it out. So that was embarrassing in itself because we had to radio back and let them know we got the Humvee stuck. And we ended up being stuck out there for hours, like long time. And it was getting close to almost nighttime out there in the middle of the summer, 100 degrees. And I really had to use the bathroom. And, well, I trotted off into the distance to go use the bathroom, and I happened to step on a bunch of killer bees that were out there and really make them angry with me. And I'm pants down, getting stung, and you know, here I am running back to the Humvee with pants around my ankles trying to pull them up, and I'm getting stung all over the place. And yeah, that's definitely one of those stories where only in the military can you be in the middle of nowhere. And oh, mind you, I'm wearing full combat gear as well too. So sure. Kevlar helmet, flak jacket, and everything. And yeah,
at least you were in your mop gear. At least you weren't in mop gear, because that would have been even worse. But man, yeah, it's stuff like that, man, that people just don't. There's, when you look back, at least when I look back, you know, there was some crazy stuff, but it was like, you laugh about it. You know, obviously that was not fun at the time, but you look back at it now, and it's like, that was hilarious. Like, you know, what are you going to do? You know, you might as well laugh about it. So that's awesome.
It definitely made me think of that story. So.
Oh yeah. Well, and you'll never forget that. And you'll see another hive of killer bees the rest of your life, and you'll remember that.
Oh, yeah. Never again.
That's right. That's right. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is, you're not out yet. Obviously you're still in active service. But there are a lot of people that are still in that listen to this podcast. And a lot of the questions that I got were, they're a little nervous about transitioning into civilian world. Now, you already touched a little bit about having the job training, the certification that will help with jobs. But as a recruiter, you know, and you've known people that have transitioned out, can you give someone any advice to say, hey, you know, when you're getting ready to transition, you know, these are some resources that are out there to help you, or all that? Because there are a lot of people that are nervous about transitioning out and becoming a civilian again. Can you give them a little bit of guidance there?
Yeah, for sure. So I've helped a lot of Marines transition out during my time in. You know, there's a lot of those Marines that only do 4 years, and they want to get out and move on with life. And, you know, I've gotten to experience that quite a bit. Some of my closest friends done that. And some of the biggest advice that I've heard from them that I share to a lot of people now is, you know, when you're in the Marine Corps, you really got to make the most of it. And when you see those training opportunities, you see those opportunities to make your resume look better when you get out of the military, taking them. Because it's all about what you make of your Marine Corps experience. If you want to have a negative experience, you'll have a negative experience and you won't get anything out of it. But if you're positive and you make the most out of it, you're going to come out of the Marine Corps with things you need to be successful in life. Now, in terms of resources and whatnot, the Marine Corps does have, it's a class that we call SEPs and TAPs. They also call it the Transition Readiness Program as well, too, that you have to attend. And they teach you how to, transition into civilian life as well, too. I know the military one source is really a big helpful thing from what I've been hearing when it comes down to, different areas that you might need help with in terms of moving and setting up a life again. And I've heard nothing but good things about the military one source. I myself haven't used them yet, but it's definitely one of those things. I'm happy that it's out there and it's free, doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, that's one. So I remember going through a separations class, and it was maybe over a 2 or 3 day span when I was getting ready to EAS out. And I just remember being overwhelmed. They throw a lot of information at you in a very quick amount of time. So if you are going through those classes and all of that, don't be afraid. Don't be like me. I didn't ask questions. There's a lot of stuff that I was like, I'll figure it out. Ask questions. That's what they're there for. They've got to get you a lot of information, but they'll also take their time and answer questions if you need to. So if you're nervous about it, talk to whoever you need to talk to in your admin or whatever. They can probably help you set up. I know the VA has. I work a little bit with the VA now. I'm on a task force with veteran suicide on the national level. We're doing some stuff behind the scenes and trying to cut it from 22. And in the last few years, we've cut it from 22 suicide by veterans a day down to 17. Not saying we did that, but we're doing a lot of stuff. But the VA gets a bad rap. Some of it is justified, no doubt about it.
Yes.
But they are trying. They're trying to do better things. So even if you plan on, if you're transitioning, even if you're not planning on ever using any of your VA benefits, when you get out, find your local VA benefit office and at least go and talk to them. Find out, they might be able to answer questions that your separations package couldn't give you or whatever. But be able to use that, and don't be afraid to use the VA. They are good at some things that they had to get better at, but they are good at some things. But yeah, thank you for talking about the one source. I had not heard of that. That obviously is something that wasn't around when I was there, but that's awesome to know that there is something out there that is free to the Marines and all that.
If I could add to it real quick.
Absolutely.
The other thing I find the most helpful from what I've been hearing too is just relying on each other. Don't ever forget your Marine Corps family, because there's so many of us out there that have started our own businesses like yourself that they're there for you as well too. And don't be afraid to go on those social media pages that have those groups about Marine veterans or whatnot. And just
I'm on several of them. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm on all of them as well too. And I'm always offering an active duty perspective of the advice as well. And it's definitely never forget your brothers and sisters. We're always going to be there to help you out.
That's the one thing about the Marines that I think that every branch. I think if you ask every branch to take everything off to the side and be honest, they'll say two things. One, when it comes right down to it, man for man, power for power, Marine Corps is the best branch out there. As far as a fighting force, there is no doubt that we are the best of the best. Even the Army will say that. But I think the biggest thing that I've heard from a lot of people that are friends of mine that served in other branches is they admire our brotherhood and sisterhood, but they admire the Semper Fidelis creed. And to us, Semper Fidelis they're not just words. It's always faithful means something. And I've been in situations where I've been at a restaurant and a guy was getting ready to get into a fight and literally stood up on top of a table and said, do the words Semper Fidelis mean anything to anyone in this room? And about 6 or 7 of us stood up without even questioning, went over there, and we're like, we got you, bro. And that's a real thing. So, and you're right. That is the one thing that the Marine Corps the world can never take from you, is you're always a United States Marine, and you're always going to have brothers and sisters out there that are willing to be there and have your back. And that is the coolest thing. And like I said, I know the other branches are very proud, but I think that it's by far, it's not even close. The pride that the Marines have over the other branches. There's only 200,000 of us roughly at a time, in one time. So we're a very small group of people. And once again, everyone's a rifleman first. So everyone's gone through the same kind of stuff, whether their MOS dictated that or not. Everyone's been through combat training. Everyone's been through and embraced the suck, if you will. So yeah, you're right. I love that. So speaking of boot camp, we remember the pit, and we call it the pit. I don't know if you guys call it the pit, but the pit was the sandbox outside the squad bay that if you were going to get thrashed, that's where it was. So what we call the pit here on the podcast is that quick response, rapid word association, and all that. So if you've got a few minutes, we're going to run you through the pit real quick. All right.
Let's go for it.
All right. Best and worst MRE.
Best. I would say the chili mac is the best, and the worst is probably the veggie omelet, like everyone normally agrees with me.
Mine was the ham steak, and then we had a tuna with noodles that was not good. But everyone I talked to that was in the 2000s for sure said the veggie omelet was terrible. I'm almost tempted to go try to find like an Army surplus store and then see if any of them have a veggie omelet just to try it. But I've heard it's bad. All right. So best and worst place that you've been in the Marine Corps.
Best place, I would say hands down is Camp Lejeune. I really enjoyed my experience out there. And maybe it's just the atmosphere and, I'm not much of a desert California guy, to be honest with you. And then worst place by far is 29 Palms. That base is, it shouldn't even exist, but it does. And, I hopefully will never end up back there again.
So it's funny. I spent my time over at First Shrig in Pendleton and then overseas in Okinawa with Third. We had to go to Lejeune for a little bit for 2 or 3 weeks at a regional intelligence training command there in Lejeune. And we had to do a little quick thing, get certified on one of the prick radios or something. I can't remember exactly, but we were there for a very short amount of time. And maybe it's because we were Southern California, Marines and all of that, the Hollywood Marines, if you will. I did not like Lejeune. Now, a buddy of mine who was with Second Force, he was at Second Shrig and he was in Lejeune and loved it and hated when they had to come over to the West Coast. So maybe that is one of those things. If you're primarily a West Coast guy, you're going to hate the East Coast. If you're an East Coast guy, you're going to hate the West Coast. But I think we can all agree that the Stumps is the worst place in the world. No doubt about it. 29 Palms is terrible. I don't know why they still have that. Maybe because it's free land. I don't know, but that is the worst place ever.
It must be cheap for sure.
What was your favorite weapon, or what is your favorite weapon that you have shot thus far in the Marine Corps?
So I went through a machine gunner's course a long time ago when I was a younger Marine, and I really enjoyed just shooting the machine guns because you can't really find those in the civilian world very well. Some places have them, but that's the one opportunity I really enjoyed is I got to shoot the 50 cal machine gun, and that's a fun gun to shoot, and
yes,
you get some kind of damage it does. And it's not only that, but it's just it's definitely something you only get to experience in the military for sure. So.
I always said the MP5. I have a tie. MP5 was awesome. I loved shooting the MP5. But the Mark 19, I mean, how could you not like a 40 millimeter belt-fed, fully automatic grenade launcher? And when most people see the Humvees with turrets, it's either a 50 or it's the Mark 19 on top of those turrets. And but yeah, the machine guns are awesome. The saws, we didn't use the 249 very much. We used the 240 Bravo a lot, which was a 308 round versus the 5.56. But those are fun. I mean, the M6, they're all great. So if you like shooting really cool guns, the Marine Corps is going to be as good as anyone to go, and everyone's going to get to shoot some of them. Everyone, I think in MCT you shoot the 50, maybe the Mark. I know you shoot the 60 for sure in MCT. So yeah, but if you want to join, that's awesome. So now we're going to go into some little different non-military stuff. So. Who's your favorite superhero?
So it's a cliche for the most part, but I've always loved Captain America for the most part. Captain America is an ordinary guy, small little dude that got superpowers, super strength, and he stands for everything I think everyone wants to stand for. And I might not love the Marvel movies that much. I'm not a huge fan of them, but I've always enjoyed Captain America, and I used to read comic books growing up as well too. So it was always a good story to read and see what he stood for.
So, of the two, Marvel or DC?
Definitely DC for the most part. Even though Captain America is the Marvel side, I'm also a huge Superman fan. So Superman and Batman are right below Captain America for the most part.
Yeah, see, I never read comic books, so I watched the movies, and my favorite superhero is Batman, because I remember the Michael Keaton Batman when I was growing up was an awesome one. I like the Marvel movies better. Like, I love Thor. I love Chris Hemsworth's character as Thor. I think he plays a hilarious Thor.
Yeah, he does pretty good.
But I like the Marvel movies, but my favorite, kind of opposite of yours, but my favorite superhero is Batman. So it's kind of one of those things where you get whatever. So what was your first car?
Oh boy. Bought it for $500 in high school. I believe it was my senior year I got it, and it was a 1991 Ford Taurus station wagon. And it was beat up, but one of the good things about buying a very old used car like that was I learned how to become a mechanic for the most part, and basically everything on that car broke, and I learned how to fix it somehow, some way. So,
well, more importantly, you had wheels. When you're 16 or whatever, at what point does it matter? You have freedom.
I even, I did the best to try to make it cool. I put a speaker system in it, and that was the thing back then, though, when I was younger.
Oh yeah, you got to have the bass, man. It's all about that bass. So, if you could act out any character from a movie in real life, any character ever in any movie ever, you could act out that character in real life, who would it be?
Definitely, I would love to be John Wick. John Wick's a pretty cool, humble guy. He's been through a lot in his life, and all he ultimately wants at the end of the day is to have peace and spend time with his dog. And what kind of man doesn't want that today? And
exactly.
All the other cool things he does, that's fun. And being able to take out the enemies of the world in that aspect, and have that highly skill of training is it sounds fun. And it's nice to see how Keanu Reeves trained for all that, and he really dedicated himself to becoming in that role, and I think that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, he is really he's dived into the gun world, and I've got a friend of mine who helped train him for the first John Wick, and she said that when he showed up, he was all business, and he was like, I'm going to learn everything. He was very professional and just dove in and was really worked hard on mastering the crafts of weapon manipulation and handling skills and safety and all of that. And everyone that says that's been around him that I've heard says he's literally the nicest guy in the world. Like, he's truly the nicest guy you'll ever meet, which is nice to hear as well. Because there's some real jerks out there, but everyone I've heard said he's probably the nicest guy in Hollywood. And that's nice to hear, because I love the John Wick movies as well. And knowing that the background of Keanu Reeves is a really down-to-earth, awesome person makes me like that character even more, for sure.
I agree with you.
Got a couple strange ones here. Luke Skywalker or Han Solo?
Definitely Luke Skywalker. Yep.
Okay. And this is a question that we always ask, and it always gets a lot of people's laughing. But in your mind and in your opinion, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Of course it is. Yeah, 100%. two pieces of the bread and there's something in the middle of it, and that's a sandwich to me.
There you go. There you go. I want to ask you one final question that I think is going to be tremendously helpful for people that are getting ready to make that jump. Is what kind of advice can you give someone who is maybe gone through the MEPS and they're in that poolee stage or whatever, or they're getting ready to, they want to leave? What's the one piece of advice that you can give them to help them prepare for boot camp?
Yeah, so that one piece of advice, especially if you're in that stage where you're waiting to go to boot camp, is, physically and mentally, you need to give it your all while you're here. That's something I wish I did before I joined the Marine Corps. I didn't have that opportunity because I left so soon after I signed up. But if you do have a lot of time before you leave for Marine Corps boot camp, I suggest, get with your recruiter. Get with me if you're my pulley and watching this right now. And just always continue learning, always continue pushing yourself. And your recruiter's main job in life is to make sure you're fully prepared mentally and physically to go to boot camp. So give it your all while you're here.
Well, guys, this has been a really fun. I want to say thank you to Staff Sergeant Hemming. He's taken some time out of his day working. He's not at home hanging out and all that. He is at work being right now. He's having to answer phones and all that, but being a recruiter, trying to pass the message of the Marine Corps on to the next generation of Marines. So Staff Sergeant Hemming, thank you so much for coming on. I got a couple questions before you go. Is there anything that you would like to maybe get out there about a message that if you could talk to someone that is thinking about joining the Marine Corps, what's that one message that you want to get out there to them right now?
Yeah, for sure. So, if you're thinking about joining the military or the Marine Corps in general, the biggest advice I have for you is, make sure to not wait on that process and get in contact with your recruiter as soon as you can. And that's not just us pushing you to through the door. That's us telling you, hey, if you want to be successful in life, why wait? Why sit on your butt and wait for your mom to be okay with it or your dad to be okay with it? It's not about them in the long run. They're a big part of supporting you and being there for you, but it's about what you want in life. And always remember that you need to take care of you at the end of the day. And, the rest will speak for itself. So my message for all you, get a hold of your recruiters. Let them know that you're interested. Let them know you're just looking around at your options. And I promise you, it's definitely worth that 1 to 2 hour conversation to at least hear about your options in life.
Absolutely. And thank you for what you do. Like I said, you are responsible for the next generation of Marines. Where can people find you if they do want to get a hold of you and ask you some questions? Is there some social media, website, phone number? How can someone get a hold of Staff Sergeant Hemming?
Yeah, so you get a hold of me either at Facebook, is Matthew Hemming is my name on Facebook. Instagram is SSGT _Matthew _Hemming. And or if you're just looking for some information from a recruiter in general and you're not in the Mansfield, Ohio area, just go to www.marines.com and click on the request for information link.
There you go. And thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome. So glad we got together and talked and all that. This is a great perspective of someone, not only just a recruiter, but someone who's still inactive, because I think that that's something that a lot of us old crusty guys, I'm 45 years old, but a lot of us kind of, we keep the memories, but we've kind of lost the memories of what was the grind, the day-to-day grind. I've been out for such a long time that it was just one of those things, but it's awesome to hear about someone who's still in and kind of see how the Marine Corps is these days and all that, because you guys took the torch from us, and now your job is to pass the torch on to that next generation, which is awesome. If you're out there, guys, and you're watching this on video and all of that, the links will be in the description below for any way you can contact Matthew Hemming and get some information about the Marine Corps. If you're listening in podcasts and all that, make sure that you understand that the conversation doesn't end. If you have questions or comments, utilize that comment section below. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a review if you're on iHeart or Spotify or Apple or wherever. Give us a good review if you like what you're hearing, and make sure that you subscribe or follow our podcast. That way you get notified every time there is a new episode. More importantly, guys, is understand this. not everyone is made and built and can handle being a Marine. The greatest thing I can tell you is if you think you are, then try. Don't ever sit there and wonder if you can. Don't make that regret. Say, I wonder if I could have done that years ago. Staff Sergeant Hemming, thank you so much for joining us. Guys, when you're out there, make sure that you're contacting your local recruiter. If you need to get a hold of me, my information is always available in there. Go follow Staff Sergeant Hemming. Go find your recruiter in your area. Contact them, whether it's Marine Corps, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever it is. If you're looking to make a difference and take your life in a new direction, be willing and able to sacrifice some time of your life and go learn a trade, go learn some responsibility, go learn some leadership, and join the military. And if you really want to push yourself and find out what kind of a human being you really can be, go be a Marine. And we're waiting for you. We're absolutely waiting for you to call your a brother or a sister. And we're never going to call you that until you've earned that title. But we are waiting for the next generation. So thank you as always, guys. We'll see you in the next podcast. Semper Fi. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening and watching this episode of the Jarhead Podcast. If you enjoy what you're hearing, make sure you go ahead and give us a follow or a thumbs up. And make sure you go check out our swag store over on our website, ghosttacticalproductions.com. Until next time, stay frosty. Semper Fi.